I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. Working together to put an end to clergy sex abuse. We'll look at the cooperation between the Brooklyn Diocese and the Kings County DA.
The Brooklyn Diocese sends us all reports that they had and they continue to have regarding sexual abuse by priests or other employees of the diocese, and we investigate the cases.
Plus, as Washington plays politics with healthcare, New York celebrates healthcare workers.
We pray for all of you in the healthcare profession because you are the proclaimers of what you have seen to those who are suffering.
And mental health is on the minds and hearts of the faithful in Manhattan.
We can help. We can do this together as long as we keep God in the picture.
Well, good evening. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Ever since the John Jay College report on clergy sex abuse was released just yesterday, many people are now refocused on the church and what it's doing to combat the problem. The report, which some are calling historic, found most cases of child sex abuse by clergy happened decades ago. But even though a leading U.S. bishop says the Catholic Church cannot be complacent about the issue. Bishop Blaise J. Cupich says, he's the chairman of the U.S. Bishops' Committee on the Protection of Children and Young People. And at a news conference today in Washington, he said, quote, "The very fear that abuse would ever recur in the church compels us to take whatever action is needed to see that it does not arise again." Well, here in Brooklyn, the diocese works very closely with the Kings County District Attorney's Office to combat sexual abuse by ordained and lay leaders in the church. To find out more about this relationship, I spoke earlier today with Ronnie Yaus, the chief of the Sex Crimes Bureau for the Kings County DA. Ronnie, thanks so much for being here today. We appreciate your time.
It's a pleasure.
Well, first of all, explain to our viewers what your work is with the DA's office and how you kind of interact with the Brooklyn Diocese.
Well, I'm the chief of the Sex Crimes and Crimes Against Children Division, and in those two divisions, well, particularly sex crimes, we handle all sexual assault cases that occur in Brooklyn. In the Crimes Against Children, we handle the sex crimes and physical abuse of children.
Sure. And how did all of this come about, this cooperation with the Brooklyn Diocese? I understand there's a memorandum of understanding that was signed back in, I believe, 2002 that sort of started this relationship.
In April of 2002, District Attorney Hines and Bishop Daley signed a memorandum of understanding, and what that does is the Brooklyn Diocese sends us all reports that they had and they continue to have regarding sexual abuse by priests or other employees of the diocese, and we without pre-screening, and we investigate the cases and then refer them back to the diocese with our determination of the case.
Sure. Now, has the DA's office found that the Brooklyn Diocese has been cooperative and compliant with the agreement?
Oh, absolutely. Over the years, we've received about 123 reports, that's from 2002 to the present, from the Brooklyn Diocese, and we feel that they're very forthcoming, and we haven't had any complaints from people that there's been a case that was reported that didn't get to our office, and we really, since 2002, haven't heard any complaints, and we've been getting the reports pretty steadily. I mean, in 2002, we received around 63 complaints. That was when the bulk of the cases came in, and over the years, we get a steady stream, about a little less than 10 a year.
Sure. Take us through kind of, I guess, a little bit of a hypothetical situation, and I kind of don't like to speak in hypotheticals too often, but a little bit of a hypothetical situation is to, let's say you get paperwork in a complaint or a report from the diocese about this is alleged to have happened. What happens at that point in the DA's office?
Well, I receive the complaint myself, and I contact the victim immediately, and I ask the victim if they'd like to come in or they prefer to speak over the phone. Sometimes we get people that are calling from other parts of the country, maybe California, Florida, maybe they're old, maybe they're sick, so they don't really want to come into our office. We discuss the case, discuss what happened to them. The conversation can be very, very long, very, very emotional. When they come into our office, there's a lot of emotion involved, and we determine if the case is within the statute of limitations. That means, is it a prosecutable case? If it is, then we could bring a prosecution. For the most part, most of these cases are not within the statute of limitations, meaning they're old allegations, but we still discuss the case with the victim and we offer them counseling from our specialized social workers, or we refer them to counseling in their neighborhood or state wherever they live.
Sure. And I understand that the diocese does not pre-screen these allegations and all of that, right? And that's kind of an important thing you were telling me.
Yes, that's an important element of the MOU, because the importance of the MOU is that there's an objective view of the case without a value judgment or without somebody else's assessment of the case, like I know this particular priest or I know this victim. We look at the case objectively. We don't know the people involved. We meet them and we make our own determination.
Now, does the DA's office work so closely with any other institution in Brooklyn that you know of?
Well, religious institution on a large scale like the diocese, I would say no. I mean, we work closely with the Department of Education because of children are abused and the schools are what's called mandated reporters, the teachers and the personnel in the schools. But a religious institution, organization like that, no.
Sure. Now, and you kind of answered this question earlier, but I wanted to just sort of go to this again and kind of reiterate. Now, the image of the church is this scandal, I mean, since 2002 when all of this broke. The image of the church has kind of been that they've been sort of sweeping things under the rug and not really handling sex abuse allegations and abusive priests or potentially abusive priests as they should. Have you found that to be the case in the Diocese of Brooklyn?
We have received 123 reports from the diocese. We have made 5 prosecutions. We've actually tried several priests. We've convicted some. We've had some pleas. Some of the cases that the church gave us that are within the statute of limitations we weren't able to make because the victims didn't want to go forward. The priest had gone to Africa. We couldn't find the priest. Some of them didn't really even occur in Brooklyn. So we've had a number of cases that were prosecutable, and I haven't found any reluctance on the part of the church to give us more information when we've asked.
All right. Ronnie Yaus with the Brooklyn DA's office, the Kings County DA's office, I should say. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Well, there is more currents coming up. The President and the Pope both have the Middle East on their minds. That story plus the rest of the day's headlines next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure. Coming up later, just who is Saint Dymphna? We'll find out. But first, let's have a look at today's headlines. Well, it is a new chapter in American diplomacy. Those were the words of President Obama today in a speech laying out a new policy toward the Middle East and North Africa. The president pointed to uprisings in Egypt, Tunisia, Syria, Libya, and elsewhere.
For 6 months, we have witnessed an extraordinary change taking place in the Middle East and North Africa. Square by square, town by town, country by country, the people have risen up to demand their basic human rights. 2 leaders have stepped aside. More may follow. And though these countries may be a great distance from our shores, we know that our own future is bound to this region by the forces of economics and security, by history, and by faith.
The president also accused Iran of hypocrisy for supporting uprisings abroad while cracking down on protesters at home. He also said that the Israeli-Palestinian border should be returned to what it was in 1967, an agreement that would involve Israel pulling back its borders. It's an idea that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was quick to reject. Netanyahu and Obama are scheduled to meet at the White House on Friday. Now, Obama's speech comes just days after Pope Benedict called for an end to fighting in Libya and for leaders and the people of Syria to spare no effort in seeking the common good. Well, meanwhile, earlier this week, police discovered the body of a Christian man in northern Iraq. The man was beheaded, and a source tells Asia News that the body showed signs of torture. The victim was a father of 3 and had been kidnapped over the weekend. The Archbishop of Kirkuk called the murder an inhuman act that goes against every human and religious principle. In Japan, the cardinal sent there by Pope Benedict this week visited areas hard hit by the earthquake and resulting tsunami that happened back in March. Cardinal Robert Serra celebrated Mass in Sende City's cathedral. He presented the local bishop with money collected at the Vatican on Holy Thursday. The Cardinal also celebrated a Mass of Thanksgiving for the beatification of Pope John Paul II. A Vatican archbishop says countries need to stand together to guarantee its citizens access to health care. Speaking to the annual assembly of the World Health Organization, the president of the Pontifical Council for Healthcare Ministry says rich people have the best coverage while poor people miss out. He says even when people do get health care, sometimes they have to pay high, catastrophic costs. Well, turning now to Spain, where bishops there are encouraging taxpayers to contribute to the church. In an online campaign, the bishops are encouraging taxpayers to just check a box on their tax returns to give a portion of their taxes to the church's charitable works. They say that checking that box does not cost taxpayers anything, and it won't mean a smaller refund. Well, less than a week after announcing the return of the Friday meat abstinence, the bishops of England and Wales are reportedly considering restoring some holy days of obligation. 3 such days, the Epiphany, the Ascension, and the Feast of Corpus Christi, were transferred to Sundays back in 2006. Speaking to the UK newspaper The Catholic Herald, a spokeswoman for the bishops say they will revisit the issue at their meeting in November. Well, back in this country, a New Jersey public high school could face legal action over the location of its graduation ceremony. The American Civil Liberties Union says Neptune High School is violating the separation of church and state by having its ceremony at a place where religious symbols are on display. The school was planning to hold the ceremony at the Great Auditorium in Ocean Grove, which is owned by a Methodist group. The ACLU has asked the school to cover up a cross and 3 other religious symbols at the location. That's something that the auditorium's owner has refused to allow. The building has hosted 7 U.S. presidents, the Reverend Billy Graham, and musical acts, including the Beach Boys, Frank Sinatra, and Peter, Paul, and Mary. And more Americans may be living happily ever after. The Washington Post reports that 3 out of 4 couples that married after 1990 celebrated a 10th anniversary. According to new numbers from the Census Bureau, that's a rise of 3 percentage points compared with couples that married in the early 1980s. Demographers say it's a result of people marrying later in life when they're more mature and more financially secure. Well, stay tuned. There's much more Currents ahead. When we return, while lawmakers on Capitol Hill are debating cuts to social health care programs, New Yorkers give thanks for those who care for the sick.
There are good people everywhere in the medical professions and in every hospital who help us and who link arms with us to serve those in need.
Welcome back. So how is this for most obvious headline of the week? It's not been an easy couple of days for Republican presidential candidate Newt Gingrich. His less than a week-old campaign for the nation's top job has gotten off to, we'll call it a rocky start. Gingrich has been buried under an avalanche of criticism by his fellow Republicans since branding Congressman Paul Ryan's proposal to transform Medicare into a voucher system, quote, right-wing social engineering. Gingrich said the plan would impose too radical a change on Americans. The former House Speaker has since softened his criticism of Ryan's approach to Medicare. But his campaign trail misstep has at least led to one positive outcome. It's managed to get people to refocus our collective attention on the topic of health and health care in America. And health care was very much on the minds of the Dominican Friars Healthcare Ministry of New York just a couple of weeks back. It was on the feast day of St. Catherine of Siena. They celebrated a mass for men and women who care for us and heal us, that is, no matter our insurance coverage or our lack thereof.
We are celebrating the patronal feast of the parish, the Feast of St. Catherine of Siena, and this is the 5th annual Mass in honor of those men and women involved in the healing professions and who care for the sick and the dying.
We pray for all of you in the healthcare profession because you are the proclaimers of what you have seen to those who are suffering.
We honor 2 extraordinary people who have given their lives to healthcare. The first person that came to our mind is Dr. Tom Fahey. And Tom has just always been on the forefront of Catholic health care.
Very honored to receive this award. Catherine of Siena, as the patroness of healthcare workers, has always been a favorite saint, and the parish of St. Catherine of Siena is located right in the middle of all of the medical centers that I've been associated with my whole life. I was married in this church, and my wife actually was born in this parish.
We also wanted to recognize Mother Agnes Mary and the Sisters of Life.
It's rather humbling to be presented such an honor. Dr. Fahey surely deserves it, but we are honored to receive it.
There is a radical need for Catholic health care to be a strong and clear voice in society and in healthcare today, not just to Catholics, but even to non-Catholics.
The Catholic hospital system in New York City essentially is gone.
The closing of St. Vincent's is tragic. When you go into urgent care or you go into the ER at NYP, since the closing of St. Vincent's, the population has doubled, if not tripled. There are times at NYP that people are in the hallways in stretchers for 24, 48, sometimes 72 hours.
Well, it's a great sorrow not to have Catholic health care, a great sorrow.
But healthcare is changing very rapidly, and the mission of the church may really evolve into caring for patients who need long-term care at home.
There are good people everywhere in the medical professions and in every hospital who help us and who link arms with us to serve those in need.
We care about life. We care about those who are suffering. We can be there with our faith, telling them that that cross is a liberating cross, is a cross that brings them closer to Jesus.
We live in a time when healthcare providers are being forced to become technicians. Catholic healthcare makes sure that we don't become technicians and that we do provide compassionate care.
They certainly do an important work. Well, stay tuned. There's much more Currents ahead. Coming up, prayers for those with mental illnesses.
We who are conscious of social justice or lack of justice need to be advocates for those who are suffering from illnesses of the mind.
Well, finally tonight, as the debate over the future of health care here in the U.S. continues to heat up, we're learning that for many, care also includes prayer. We just saw a mass for health professionals, but now it's all about the people in need of care. And in what is quickly becoming an annual tradition at St. Patrick's Cathedral in Manhattan, well, they hosted a mass to coincide with the feast of St. Dymphna, the patroness of people with emotional and psychological difficulties, and for those with autism and Alzheimer's disease. Well, for family members, the stories are powerful, but also full of hope.
My husband and I have 6 children who were all adopted between the ages of 3 months and 13 years old. Some of the mental and emotional problems we have in our family include depression, bipolar disorder, learning disabilities, ADHD, and schizophrenia.
I'm here tonight to share with people some of the journey that I've experienced with mental illness in my family, with my children, and the need to keep God at the forefront of that struggle and that journey.
This year is the 2nd annual St. Dymphna Mass, Healing Mass, and Devotion to St. Dymphna. 2nd time held here in the cathedral. You could see there were people of all ages. It's always heartbreaking to see the children, and then you can see older people either suffering depression or Alzheimer's, and the younger ones with autism or other forms of mental illness.
Tonight we're here remembering that people over the centuries have had a great devotion to St. Dymphna. And the place in Belgium where her relics are became a place where people with emotional problems were not rejected as they were so many other places. People with emotional problems often have been mistreated and treated poorly and treated as rejects. And tonight the church is saying, well, obviously we don't believe that, and you're not rejects, and you're certainly loved by Christ, and we want to reflect that same love.
People who are here tonight are here because they're scared, just looking for someone to listen and to put their arms around them and say, it's okay, I've been there, we can help. We can do this together as long as we keep God in the picture.
Through the intercession of St. Dymphna, the face of mental illness becomes one of people who embrace the suffering nature of their disabilities with strength and determination in a world filled with a lack of compassion towards disabilities not easily seen or understood.
This is the second time I've come, the second year I've come, and I think the church is finally reaching out. Where in the past, I don't think they knew about it. I don't think anybody realized the depth of it.
We who are conscious of social justice or lack of justice need to be advocates for those who are suffering from illnesses of the mind. It's really shocking how your care is determined by a health insurance plan, and programs within the community are being cut. It's really a sad situation with the economy, with cutbacks.
The mental disabilities within our family unit have not changed or decreased during the past 20 years, but our ability to deal with them has improved with experience, education, and greater trust in God.
I can't say that I would want to go through the difficult times and some of the crises we faced, but the rewards of my children are as great as anyone's children, maybe better, because we did have to struggle.
Education, proper care, and prayer all seem to go hand in hand when dealing with those kinds of issues. And you know, the thing about it is, if we ourselves maybe haven't suffered from some of those issues that she talked about, we know someone who has, and so it's something that's really touched each and every one of our lives. Well, that is it for this edition of Currents. Now, coming up tomorrow, we'll continue our look at the issue of clergy sexual abuse following yesterday's report from the John Jay College of Criminal Justice. We'll have more on what's being done here in the Brooklyn Diocese to address abuse. Well, for all of us here at Currents, I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.